Welcome to the John Freakin' Muir Pod. Lace up those boots and sling on the pack for a romp through trails, short and long. With your host and Renaissance man, Doc. It's time to embrace the suck.
Welcome back to another week on the trail. I'm Doc, and this is the John Freakin' Muir Pod. Let's start off with the obligatory reminder. If you are enjoying the podcast, take just a minute, help us out, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you are not enjoying the pod, well, just go ahead and keep that to yourself. All right. Hey, let's get to this week's guest, with whom I kind of crossed paths with on my last outing to the Sierras this summer. Though we didn't actually see each other on the trip, Jack Ryan Greener passed right by my camp in the early morning hours, just 2 miles short of Mount Whitney. Welcome to the podcast, Jack.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm stoked to be here.
You have quite a story, and I think it's very inspirational. I'm excited to share this with our listeners.
Yeah, for sure. It's a pretty gnarly one. Can't lie.
We are always looking for gnarly stories.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, one of the things that we do here on the podcast is we go by trail names, if you have one. So I have to ask, Jack, do you have a trail name? Have you picked one up?
I feel like those are bestowed upon you. I was not bestowed a trail name yet. So if you're willing to give me one, I have plenty more hikes planned. Okay.
Well, we'll keep our ears open, our minds open to see if we can come up with a trail name during the episode. Until then, though, you'll just go by Jack.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Hey, have you had a chance to listen to any of the podcast episodes, Jack?
I have not. I've been pretty off grid probably the past 5-6 days on the beaches of Costa Rica. So
wait a second. You're in Costa Rica right now?
Yeah. So funny story. About 1 week before this whole JMT PCT Mount Whitney Summit occurred, I had a good friend of mine call me up who I lived with in Costa Rica about 4 years ago in 2017. And she's like, I don't know who to call, but a friend of a friend of a friend needs some surfboards delivered. That person will pay for your round trip ticket. You just have to bring the surfboards down. Can you make it happen? And I was like, well, I'm Jack fucking Greener, so of course I can make it happen. And yeah, literally we got off Whitney Portal on Sunday, and I flew down here last Wednesday. So I've been in Nosara, Costa Rica for the past probably 5 days now.
Rough. That's a rough experience, man.
It's a hard life.
Hey, and I have to ask, your name is Jack Ryan Greener. Parents fans of the espionage genre?
That's so my first and middle name. That's what I'm named after. I was named after the Tom Clancy character.
Very good. All right.
Yeah.
The Spy Who Loved Me. Maybe that's the trail name. I don't know. That might be too long. Let's see.
Yeah.
Okay. So the reason I asked if you have listened to the podcast is to see if you are familiar with one of the regular features that we have on the podcast, which is the Pro Tip Insight of the Week. And what that is towards the end of the episode, I will turn to you and I'll say, Jack or Jack Ryan, or maybe a trail name at that point. I'll say, hey, do you have a chunk of wisdom, some insight that you can share with our listeners to make their next outdoor experience even better?
Oh, trust me, I have a lot of insight.
Okay.
A lot of insight. Yeah.
Fantastic. Don't be surprised when we get there.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, another feature we've been doing this season is the Must Bring Gear Review, sponsored by the ultralight backpacking gear company Outdoor Vitals. And here's how it works. If you were to let a stranger pack your bag with pretty much generic gear for a multi-day hike, what is the one specific piece of gear you would insist on being packed? And if you've got a particular brand for that specific piece of gear, even better. So, Jack, what is your must-bring piece of gear?
Oh, that's a good question. My must-bring piece of gear, literally right off the top of my head, was an inflatable pillow. Like, there's not a lot of comfort in the backcountry, right? But that little inflatable pillow, I can't name the brand that I have off the top of my head, makes, like, especially for me with my disability and everything, makes a world of difference in terms of comfort.
Yeah, I would heartily agree with that. That must bring piece of gear. I've tried the stuff sack filled with clothes or a jacket, and it's just
I've done the same.
It's not the same.
It's horrible. It's for me, it's like I'm willing to have that few extra grams just to have that little pillow.
Yes.
So that was a game changer on this trip.
Very wise. I bring a Trichology
Okay.
inflatable pillow. I don't know if it's the same you have or not, but
Gotcha. Yeah, I picked mine off of Ari. I didn't even look at it because I was like, my sponsor's paying for it. So I was just like, just throw it in the cart and I'll take it. Like, but that's the big piece of gear. I think I've done the stuff sack, I've done jackets, I've pretty much done it all. So taking the inflatable pillow for the first time was a game changer.
Yeah, and hopefully our listeners, their interests have peaked a little bit here because we've mentioned disability, we've mentioned sponsor, but we haven't given anything away yet. So without giving too much away, what is your base weight in your pack? Do you carry a sizable pack on your hikes? How does that work?
So the way my pack weight broke down during my training sessions for the past 2 years would average between 15 to 32 pounds. On my stair stepper training sessions, I would up that weight to about 32 to 35 for about 60 minutes. During my outdoor hikes, that would range anywhere from 2 miles with, the flat irons, right? 1500 vert to 6, 7, 8 miles. I would probably average around a 15 to 20 pound pack.
Okay. And what give us a run through of some sampling of the gear that you've got in your kit. Are you a tent guy? Are you a tarp guy? Cowboy camp? What do you do?
I'm a tent guy. So I have always used like just one person tents, like the REI one person tents, the not Marmot tents. I had a different one like 3 years ago, but I usually use like a 1 or 2 person tent. As far as like I just try and keep it as light as possible, right? Because my legs are probably 50% of what they were strength wise. And actually on this specific trip, I had my friends carry my bag for portions of the trail because of the terrain typically. So the lighter, the better.
If you've got friends carrying the bag, I mean, just load it up, 50 pounds. I mean, all the creature comforts.
Yeah, see, I'm a minimalist at heart. Like if you saw my apartment, you're like, this is very Spartan. So I always try to keep my bag as light as possible, and I've done that since I started backpacking.
Well, your friends should thank you. That's very thoughtful.
Yeah. They were stoked that they didn't have to carry more than about 20 pounds. So
nice. Now, before we get too far down the trail, let's back up a little bit and let's go through your origin story in terms of outdoor experience. So we'd love to hear about where you grew up, what your family was like. Was the outdoor experience, part of growing up with your family, and how'd you get hooked on the outdoors?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I started traveling with my family and independently around about 12 years old. I'll be the first to tell you, I grew up pretty silver spoon. Very comfortable upbringing. Parents divorced like first year of high school, but for the most part, it was a comfortable upbringing, and I have no qualms admitting that. As far as like the outdoors and stuff, I grew up from the time I was 4 or 5, like surfing on the beaches of San Diego, and that eventually led to, free diving, because we would go to Catalina every summer to go just free dive and sail over there. And that eventually led to spearfishing, right? And, subsistence hunting. And then that eventually led to backpacking, right? So one thing led to another, and I pretty much spent both the majority of my childhood and adulthood outside in some form, whether in the water or on trails or in, rock climbing or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Siblings?
Yeah, I have a younger brother. He is 24. He lives in Denver as well with me. He's a rock climber. He's not, we joke, a hike is just an approach with no crag. And so it's been the running joke. It's like, if you're not going to rock climb now, it's just a hike, and that's no fun. So looking to switch that trend around with some more technical climbs in the future. But yeah, he's 24. He's a good kid, works hard, spends a lot of time climbing as well.
Okay, so your base of operations is in Denver.
Is in Denver, yeah. And I bounce between Denver and San Diego, as well as Northern California on a monthly basis.
Okay. Those are some good locales for outdoor experiences.
Yeah, man, I thank my lucky stars. I've created a lifestyle that allows to bounce between places like Tahoe and Yosemite and San Diego and Denver and Boulder and spots like that. So
Mm-hmm. Now, in that backstory there, you mentioned a couple of things I want to touch upon, maybe get a little more in depth. Tell me about freediving, because that seems to me to be a very interesting pastime. I mean, when you talk freediving, you're talking about going deep with no assistance. You're just using your lungs, and you're down there for periods of time that us normal folk can't do.
yeah, so the crazy thing, so like I said, we grew up going to Catalina as kids. Like we would sail over with our friend's dad every summer. And we were always trying to figure out how to hold our breath for longer when we'd go down to like 15, 20, 25 feet, diving off the sailboat wherever we were anchored. And so one thing led to another. And I think it was my junior year of high school. I asked for my birthday. I was like, hey, I don't want money. I don't want, some party or anything. Like, I want to learn how to like properly free dive. And so I took a sport freediving class my junior year of high school, and it completely changed my life. I learned how to not only like breathe properly, but I learned how to hold my breath. I learned the science of holding your breath. And when we get further down the line with the rest of the story, like freediving played a pivotal role in and continues to play a pivotal role in a lot of my life.
Right. I watched a documentary, I think it was on Netflix. It was called We Are the Champions. It was like 6 or 8 episodes of, different types of activities. If I'm not getting this confused with something else. And I think one of the episodes was on freediving, and these people are going down to, 200 feet.
Yeah.
Which was just insane. And they would come back up, and sometimes they would lose consciousness in the last, 10 yards, near the surface. And in order to win these competitions, you have to come back to the top, conscious, and being able to kind of answer questions. And if you made it to the top, but you were incapacitated or out of it, I mean, then it was not ruled a dive, complete dive. Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Shallow water blackout is very real and a very scary thing. And they teach you how to mitigate that. But I've never been in that situation before, but that's because you know your limits and you don't push them unless you're in a controlled setting. So.
Mm-hmm. And what is the Cliff Notes version of the proper breathing technique to do freediving?
So to this day, I can still break it down. Like I could literally have you holding your breath for 2 minutes within about 15 minutes of like instruction.
Wow.
So it basically breaks down into a series of steps in the most simple way. So it starts with your diaphragm, right? We're taught as men, for whatever reason in evolution, we eventually start breathing through our upper lungs to essentially puff our chests out, right? It's a very testosterone, male driven, inherent quality. And so what they teach you in these classes is you start with your diaphragm, right? And you breathe through your diaphragm and you drop your heart rate through that. And then what you do is as you're going to your final breath before you dive, you go diaphragm, intercostals, right? Your ribs, and it goes your lower lungs, your upper lungs, it goes your throat, it goes your mouth, and then it goes your lips, right? And when you break that down step by step, you can literally feel the oxygen hitting each different section of that. And then you go hold your breath, and then that's when you dive. And that's how you do a proper breathe up and a proper breath hold.
So I don't know how good the rest of this podcast interview is going to be, because I'm really focused on my breathing right now, and that might interfere with my talking. So
yeah.
Fantastic. And then you also mentioned subsistence hunting. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So like that kind of started, that was a thing we, being very traditionally macho teenage boys that love the outdoors and stuff, which I don't abide by now, but like, we wanted to go to Catalina one summer for like 2 or 3 days. Just like, we brought some veggies, but we're like, we want to shoot what we eat. So, after we got into free diving and I did my courses, I I would regularly go out to go hunt fish and lobster in San Diego. And it's a really cool little niche community that is really small. And yeah, just one thing led to another. And like we would come home with we'd make tacos and fried fish and all that. And then it's like, all right, well, let's go to Catalina. So we went to Catalina again one summer and just lived off of what we shot and ate it. And, you know, it was only like a 4-mile hike in or whatever it was. And it was hard. It wasn't easy. Like you're literally like, you die for like 4 hours and you're like, I only shot 2 fish. This is bullshit. Like this is going to feed all 5 of us. Like what the hell? So yeah, that's kind of where it came from. And I spearfished and lobster dove all the way through college pretty much. It was funny. Like my freshman year in the dorms at San Diego State, I would go lobster diving, and then like to fuck with all the people in the dorms, you take the tails right from the heads of the lobster, and we'd leave the heads in the elevator. And there's like this social media app, be like, who the fuck left lobster heads in the elevator? And like, oh, it was us, like just messing around with people. So yeah,
the merry prankster. Very good.
Yeah, that's how we got a lot of our better meals my freshman year of college. Let's put it that way.
So you did subsistence hunting, and you ate what you shot. But
Yep.
we're only talking fish and lobster. You didn't go after a bison on Catalina.
No, you know what's funny is when we were on that one trip, we did run into a bison. And I was like, we're all like 20 feet away, and you're a dumb teenage kid, right? And so you have no idea that bison can literally kill you. And we're just like face to face with this bison, like just staring at it, like, wow, I've never seen a bison this close. And in reality, like that's how you die.
That might be the pro tip, right? Don't get that close to a bison. That could be one.
Don't get close to wild animals in general.
Yeah. Now at San Diego State, what did you study?
So I studied sustainability, right? So basically a glorified environmental science degree without the S and the B part. And my emphasis was actually in surf tourism. So San Diego State has the only program in the country focused, only center, it's called the Center for Surf Research. It's the only one of its kind in the country focused around surf tourism and operations and stuff like that. It's a very Southern California thing. And I found out my degree advisor was like, well, you're going to Nicaragua, you're a surf guide down there, you're helping run a camp down there. You might as well just make your degree about surf tourism, and like that's what you want to do with your life. And so long story short, I spent my college career studying surf tourism, and my goal post-grad was actually to move down to the exact spot I'm in Nosara to teach surf professionally and run surf camps down here. And so this is a pretty good segue, actually. 3 weeks before I was slated to essentially move down to Costa Rica and graduate college and really make a life down here, I was in an accident. So,
okay. Before we get to that accident, I really want to know what are the university classes that you take in the surf tourism major?
Yeah, so it's not a major. It's like
that's
classes
an emphasis.
Yeah, it's an emphasis.
Okay.
It's a lot of it is like recreation and tourism management based, like financial based, like business operations based. So it, in a very layman's term way, it's just business classes catered around tourism.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And I know that was your projected career. How do you pay the bills now, actually?
So now, so the easy answer is sales. I work for an events company that does thought leadership podcasts. What else do we do? Thought leadership podcasts, events, stuff like that. And we're essentially the Cadillac of software as a service, like technology company, like event companies. And so it's a very lucrative position, to put it lightly. So it pays the bills. I work completely remote. I go to California, once, twice a month. And I love the team that I work with. And, it's fast paced, and given the lifestyle that I live, like that's good because I got to stay busy.
And yeah, that's what pays.
Okay. And do you ever, before we get to the accident and things, do you ever do any kind of motivational speaking or appearances for that? And you're on mute right now. There you go.
Yeah. So my headphones just died, so I don't want to cut the background audio out, just as a heads up.
Got it.
I'm working on it. So I am probably slated to go to Florida in the next month or so. We'll see what happens. I made an agreement with the CEO out there that I kind of know through social media. And then I'm waiting for some stuff. So we have a film coming out. I have LA Times front page, digital and print coming out in the next few weeks. So yeah, we finished the big precipice of summoning Whitney. And now it's kind of the rest of it. We're on a bigger precipice of media and film and video and stuff. So
okay, exciting times. And before we get to the accident, I just want to go in chronological order of the notes that I have here. I also see that you did some time up San Gorgonio.
Yeah, so this is another great segue. So I was very frustrated, probably late college, sophomore to senior year. I knew I was outdoorsy. I surfed, 4 or 5 days a week. I was up and down the coast. I was in and out of Mexico surfing. I was hiking occasionally, like just in San Diego. And I wanted to get more heavily into backpacking, having done a little bit of it in high school, but I had no one to go with, which was really frustrating. And so what better way to than impulsively hike the tallest mountain in SoCal by yourself? And so, I did I basically looked at like the 6-pack of peaks challenge in Southern California. And I looked at all of them. I was like, which one's the hardest? Because I was like, I'm in good shape. Like I can do this. And San Gorgonio was the one, at about 11,500. And I was like, all right, like how hard could it be? And I
just walking, right? It's just walking.
It's just a long uphill walk.
Right.
And I did it on a whim one morning in October of 2018. And yeah, I did it like really quickly. I think I had probably a 35-pound pack. Not too much of an idea of what I was doing, but I was like, fuck it, I'm going. And I got the permits. I waited at the ranger station like the morning of to get them. And then I hustled up that mountain. And what's funny is I got to the tree line at around 10K, 10.5, whatever it was. And I remember thinking to myself, I was like, all right, I got enough water. I had food. My tent's back at camp. It's set up. I can overnight here. I've never really done this at altitude. It was my first alpine hike, so to speak. And I remember like I hit that upper trail section right before the summit where it's kind of like loose, gravelly rock. And I was like, oh, fuck, it's hard to breathe. And I took a few videos being like, just one step in front of the other, like we're going to make it eventually. And then I got up to the summit and I did the picture with the sign or whatever. I was like, that was enjoyable. Like that was fun. Like it wasn't too bad. And so I took a video, and in the video verbatim pretty much goes like this. Like I took a selfie video. I looked around, I was like, oh, the sun, because like the sun had just come out of the clouds. And then I was like, summited San Gorgonio, I think did it solo. Like the next logical choice is to go do Mount Whitney next year. And that so began, the Whitney project, so to speak. And that was San Gorgonio. I overnighted, around 9:05 or whatever it was. I wrote down a bunch of like notes and manifestation stuff that I was really working on at the time. And then I just hoofed it back down to the bottom of the mountain around I got it down like 8 a.m. or something. And that was my first trip to the Alpine, so to speak. So,
and you were hooked.
I was hooked. I was like, this is fucking awesome. Yeah. Like my first real overnight hike, and I did it completely alone. No prep, no nothing. Just a confident young man looking up at a mountain like, all right, this is doable. Let's just go do it.
Sometimes ignorance is bliss.
Yeah. I didn't know what AMS was. I didn't know how much water I needed. I was just like, I'm fucking going, and I'm strong. That's all that matters.
Yeah, and then when you start to do planning for future hikes, then you realize that planning is like half the fun. Getting down into the details and logistics, and where the resupplies are going to be, and what kind of gear and how much water and all that good stuff.
Yeah, and I did a bit of research prior. I was like, all right, what do I need to bring? Like, this isn't, we're not at sea level here. Like, I did a bit of like vegetarian meal prep and everything, and I brought like black bean tacos or something and some bars and stuff. And then now after completing this most recent hike, I was like, all right, now I know exactly what I need to be comfortable, and like water, how many calories, everything. Like, now I have it down to a science.
Right. And you mentioned the 6-pack of peaks. If for our listeners out there who are wondering what that is, you can go back to one of our season 1 episodes with Jeff Hester, who was the creator of the 6-pack of peaks challenge, and listen to that episode. A lot of great information there. 6-pack of peaks challenge is not just Southern California. It's in multiple locations across the country, including Colorado. And I think New England, the Pacific Northwest, and I think there are even starting to be some international 6-pack of peaks where you pick six mountaintop climbs of a list of maybe 9 or 12, and if you enter on the website, you get I think it's a nice T-shirt when you complete the challenge. So, all right, and then also to go back to surfing real quick, were you a big wave surfer? What was the biggest wave you ever surfed?
12 feet.
Okay.
Out in Hawaii. Yeah, 12 feet out in Hawaii.
So you weren't behind a jet ski being towed into these huge waves of Jaws or.
So, you funny you bring up Jaws. I have it down on my list. I was like, in terms of next hikes, I'd like to do Mount Hood next year. Mm-hmm. And then I'd like to do Rainier. And then in terms of like other like activities, I have the missing puzzle piece for me is surfing, because it's been such a massive part of my life. And now being down in Nosara in Costa Rica, I'm like, I really got to make this connection again. But the end goal would be to surf Jaws on an adaptive surfboard.
Wow, that'd be another film project right there.
Yeah. It's I have some friends on Maui, and they're connected, and they know the big wave boys over there. So I have the connections to make it happen. It's just more so getting to that point is the hard part.
Yeah. So yeah, best surfing documentary out there right now.
Ooh, right now. So, the sad part is I've been disconnected from that side of myself and the media of it. As far as documentary or film, I've really loved the Stab High, like electric acid surfboard tests, where basically they give a pro surfer like 12 different boards from shapers all over the world, and they go to like these exotic locations, and like basically the surfer's like, that board is shit, that board is sick, and then they go through like why and everything. And having just same with you being like a gear nerd for hiking, like I was a surfboard nerd, like why do surfboards work the way they do, and like why should I ride this board versus another board? And so I would like obsess over those documentaries.
Where can we find those? Those on YouTube or?
Yeah, you can find the like the electric acid Kool-Aid surf. I'm not nailing the title, but yeah, if you look up Stab High like surfboard test, you can find them on YouTube.
Sounds like a great program. In fact, if they were to serve some wings with hot sauce in between surfing attempts, yeah, first we feast with the boards or something. Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Hey, we have been teasing this whole first segment here about what happened, and we're going to get to that when we come back right after the break. Stay tuned for that. Be right back. The John freaking Muir Pod is sponsored by Outdoor Vitals, the ultralight backpacking gear company whose mission is to improve the mental, physical, and emotional health of mankind by facilitating impactful outdoor experiences. Outdoor Vitals creates innovative technical products with confidence-inspiring education that empower outdoor ultralight adventurers. Their focus on performance enables you to live ultralight with gear you can actually be confident with. Whether you're looking for an ultralight sleep system, shelter, or pack, or if you're looking for top quality apparel for the trail, you can find it at Outdoor Vitals. Do yourself a favor. Live ultra light. And welcome back. We're talking to Jack Ryan Greener. And we have teased a couple times about, what about him being so inspirational and motivational, and the accident, and life before the accident, life after the accident. So let's put our listeners out of their misery and let them know exactly what we're talking about here, Jack. What exactly happened? Take us through it all.
Yeah, so we talked about San Gorgonio. We talked about kind of where the Whitney project came from. So that was October 2018. About 1 month later, I was in Thailand actually, and just life, world's my oyster, about to finish college, life is great. And I had just gotten back from Thailand, like late November, and I think it was November 27th I got back. November 29th, 2018, I was in a jiu-jitsu class. Grappling, fighting, jiu-jitsu has been part of my life since I was probably about 14, 15. Wrestling specifically, and then that transitioned into grappling and jiu-jitsu. But November 29th, 2018, I was in a jiu-jitsu class. It was a day like any other. That morning, I checked my schedule and I was like, all right, I don't have much on my agenda. Like, my work's good. School studying is on track. Finals is 3 weeks away. I'm going to go for a surf check, right? So I went for my surf check. I was like, surf's not that good. Grabbed my daily coffee, kind of wrote down some like manifestation notes, whatever. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, I haven't gone to like the new jiu-jitsu class in, I don't think ever before. Like I should go train this afternoon. So I moseyed on over to Del Mar, to the gym in San Diego, and it was just a standard day. It was warm-ups, some technique, and at the time I was training pretty consistently for competitions and stuff like that. So I was getting paired up with higher level individuals on a regular cadence, and one of them being the black belt instructor, who I had trained with on numerous occasions. And it was about 12:49, and I was in a protective position called turtle. And essentially he put his knee into the back of my neck, and tried to torque me over. Succeeded in doing so, and in the process broke my neck at C4 and C5 via an illegal move. So he crushed my neck essentially.
You got that down to the minute, 12:49 on the day.
12:49, 12:50, because I remember looking up at the clock.
There's life before 12:49 and there's life after 12:49.
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so it was an illegal move done to me. And you know what a tree sounds like when it's breaking, that last splinter, like the last loud crack? That's what your neck sounds like when it breaks. And so immediately the whole class went dead silent, right? And I kind of like yelled out, and then I rolled onto the mat essentially. And the way I describe it to everyone is, when you get into a really hot tub, you don't necessarily register that it's that hot. And it's kind of like this warm flooding feeling through your entire body when you get in all the way. That feeling is the same exact feeling you get when you get paralyzed. So I was subsequently obviously paralyzed from the neck down immediately.
Now C4, you said C4, C5?
Yep, C4, C5.
Where for us laymen, where how far down is that?
So that, if we were to point to a section on our neck, if you put your fingers around the middle part of your neck, right where it lines up with jawline, that's essentially where C4, C5 is.
Wow,
it's the high. It's very high. So it's the last probably two vertebrae. If you were to break your neck, the last two vertebrae you'd want to break before it gets really it gets exponentially, it's already really, really, really bad. But once you get into that like C3 to C1 range, that's almost guaranteed death, typically. So, yeah, it was immediately paralyzed from the neck down upon, my neck breaking. So began, like, oh, man, so began like everyone just went dead silent, right? And I was like, I can't move. And initially, whether this was a trauma response or whether this was I'm a godless spinal cord injury survivor, or whether this was just some act of gut feeling or of some higher power, whatever you believe in. My first thought was, I'm going to be okay. And the second thought was, oh fuck, I can't move. So immediately the class stopped. The other instructor in the class, was like, nobody move. And then because there was some ICU nurses in the class at the time, are like, we can stabilize him, we can do, we can get him good to go. And he's like, don't touch him. And then he's like, somebody call 911. Cue 911. I'm starting to like, freak out a bit. But what I tell everyone is, and we can circle back to the freediving thing, I knew how to breathe. And so with an injury that high up in your neck, it immediately affects everything. Your ability to breathe, like everything is affected. So I was face down. I was looking to my right, and I was looking at the clock, and I was looking at the wall, and I just started to try and control my breathing as best as I could, right? And then, 10, 15, 20 minutes later, ambulance shows up. They strip me down naked on the mat, stabilize me, put me in the back of the ambulance. And that's when I started to kind of go into a panic state. Still trying to control my breathing, right? Like thinking, I was like, you know how to breathe, just keep breathing. But I remember I was starting to cry and go into shock. And I remember looking at this giant ginger EMT with the biggest fucking mustache ever. And looking at him like, am I ever going to walk again? He's not saying a fucking word to me. Not a single word. He's just basically keeping me stable all the way to the ICU. And immediately upon getting carted out of the ambulance, my dad and my mom are on either side. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't want this to happen. Obviously in shock, right? It's not my fault. I didn't do anything wrong. But they're like, honey, it's going to be okay. Like, we're going to figure this out. Like, all's going to be well. Now, in this singular moment and moments after, nobody has any fucking idea. Right?
Right.
And we didn't know this at the time, but it would get worse. So they carted me into the ICU. I'm going to gloss over a couple details here and there, but basically I ended up getting put in what's called traction. And so you can see the scars.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can. Yeah,
I can see it. Yeah. Yep.
The traction scars on the side of my head. Essentially what that does is when somebody has a spinal cord injury, in the cervical column, they want to relieve pressure off the spinal cord in case it's compressed, in case there's bone fragments like floating around, that sort of thing. And so I distinctly remember upon getting put into traction, they drill into the side of your head. They don't give you any painkillers, right? Because they need you to know what your pain levels are, even though you can't feel the rest of your body because you only have pain receptors now from the neck above.
So you only have pain receptors from the neck above, and that's where they're drilling the holes.
That's where they're drilling the holes. And
they're drilling. That is gnarly.
So they're drilling into the side of your head, right? And before they really started, I remember my dad's like right next to me. And I was like, Dad, like, we need to start videoing this like now. Like, this is going to be something here. And he's like, God bless him, right? And he's like, okay. And once again, verbatim, he's like, all right, 3, 2, 1. I was like, hey guys, I got a little fucked up. My neck is cracked at C4 and C5. I currently am paralyzed, but all will be well. I'll be walking again in 6 months. End video. Posted it out to social media. It went on Facebook, everything, right? To let my friends and family know. At that moment, I knew in my head that I would be okay, but no one in the collective vicinity of that hospital thought the same.
Yeah, that could have been categorized as wishful thinking on your part at that
exactly.
point.
Yeah. I had no idea. I
Right.
was just like, I'm a strong dude. I can do this, you know? I had no idea the severity and how much more severe it would get. So after that, they started the traction process. They would take incremental weights essentially, and then start at 1, and it goes like 3, 6. It got all the way around up to like about 27 to 29 pounds of basically pressure on my head and my head being pulled upwards. And when I started to see, like, I saw pain, like I saw pink splotches and my vision started to go blurry. And I was like, I turned to the nurse, because the nurse is like, just tell me when you feel pain. Just tell me when you feel pain. And I was like, it hit that number. And I was like, I see pain right now. And he's like, say no more. And he takes like these giant lidocaine needles and just fucking jabs them into all parts of my head to numb my head. And then that's kind of when things went a little blurry with the painkillers and stuff. So that was my initial initiation into ICU life and spinal cord injury.
And before we get to the recovery and, you know, kind of where it went from there, I am angry on your behalf. I am seething inside that this even happened. You know, what is the culpability, and what was the reaction of the jiu-jitsu instructor?
I can't comment on that because I haven't spoken to him. Under no circumstances ever, you can talk to anyone, should a black belt with 10 to 20 years of experience harm a white belt. Under no circumstances ever. Like, it's understandable if some, like, a white belt, like a novice, hurt me, like okay, like, shit happens, but under no circumstances should a master of the sport and the art ever harm a student. Bar none. There's no argument for it. You can't argue it. Anyone that tries to argue it can go get fucked. So no, I haven't spoken to him, and there's things I can't comment on around the situation, just on for public reasons. But
well, I hope you can't comment on it, because you're taking legal action against that organization. That is just infuriating, and I feel terrible.
Yeah,
that should not have happened.
Yeah. So kind of circling back to like the initial ICU. So at the time, you know, I was competing a lot. I was hyper active physically. You know, I was surfing, training jiu-jitsu, hiking. I was doing everything a 23-year-old kid could while still sleeping.
Yeah, you were in peak physical condition doing all of these activities. And at 12:49, that changed.
Yeah, exactly. And so throughout that afternoon, right, it's a blur, but I had my nurse, who is now one of my best friends. His name is Justin Weiner. All afternoon, I had been telling him, hey, like, something's really wrong here, right? Something's really wrong. I just knew internally that something was off, and we'd have the nurses or whoever check my vitals, and he'd be like, nope, like, you check out, like, everything's good. Fast forward to about pretty much 12 hours on the dot after the accident at, 12:49, around 12:50 to 1:30 a.m. the following day, November 30th, I suffered hemorrhagic strokes from internal bleeding of clotting from a lacerated vertebral artery passing through my brain. So at that point, by sheer luck, Justin, and he told me, at a later date, he's like, I had this gut feeling that something was just really off, but everything checked out. And so I kind of just stayed near your room, and he just happened to be sitting right across the hall at the desk when I basically screamed out bloody murder. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. And he came rushing in. And at that point, I was pretty much incapacitated, going through stroke after stroke from the clots passing through my brain. And that's when, subsequently I got rushed into the OR for about 9 hours. And so the dramatics are going to slowly pan off, but was rushed in the OR around 2:33 a.m. My mom rushed to the ICU, and essentially the surgeon came out and was like, your son's had multiple strokes. He's diagnosed with quadriplegia. We have no idea if he's going to walk again, but right now what we have to do is, 1, we have to save his brain. 2, we save his organs, and then his limbs come last. So brain first, organs, then limbs. Like, your limbs are an afterthought. And my mom's like, oh my God, okay. Like, and the surgeon literally looked at her in the eye, and this is her verbatim what she said. She's like, the surgeon said, ma'am, I have to go in and save your son's life. And then walked out of the room. Straight out of a fucking, soapbox movie.
Yeah, you were going through a lot, but I also have a lot of feelings for your parents and having to go through what, as a parent myself, put in that position and go through first that, the news that your son has broken his neck. And then, 12 hours later, you're in the operating room. They're trying to save your life for 9 hours. I mean, that is just putting them through the ringer. That's terrible.
Yeah, they still have a bit of PTSD, to put it lightly.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. My mom always said, she's like, every single time my phone rings, I'm concerned that something happened to you. And I was like, yeah, that's a logical response. Like, sorry, didn't want to put you through that, but life happens.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of the dramatic of it, and came out of that. They basically put a stent in one of my vertebral arteries that was cut, and the surgeon summarized it to my mom. Is like, hey, Jack was built differently. One of his arteries is actually smaller than the other. We went down to the heart operation floor, grabbed the stent, and then have propped that artery open with a stent so blood can flow. And she's like, well, will that affect his brain and like his ability to speak and everything? She's like, and the surgeon said, we hope not, and it'll take a few months to heal, and hopefully all will be well. But that's what we had to do, and that's what we did on the fly. And so I have a stent on one of my arteries that keeps blood going to my brain, essentially. And
Jack, I know you said you weren't religious, and neither am I. I don't spend a lot of time at church. I spend my experiences where I feel like I'm close to God or close to a higher being is when I'm outside in nature. Yeah. And you have to agree that there seems to be something at work here. I mean, the fact that you had done some free diving and you did training in free diving and you're familiar with the breathing, and you found yourself in that predicament and having to control your breathing in that moment. Justin being just outside your door, hanging around because he thought something wasn't quite right when you suffered the strokes, to be able to call for assistance. And then the fact that you're built differently with the smaller artery. I mean, it just seems to be a whole combination of factors there is just uncanny.
Yeah, it is. It really is, now that you say it out loud the way you frame that. I don't know, man. I tell everyone, it's like, at the end of the day, it was a perfect storm of access to world-class medical care, being in top physical shape. And at one point during my ICU stay, a girl I had previously dated, she came in bawling. She's like, I don't know how you're going through this. I don't know how you're doing with any of this. And I was like, her name's Harmony. I was like, Harmony, like, I was cut out for this. Like, I had already knew how to do all the breathing. I'd already been meditating. I'd already been journaling. Like, I was doing the self work. Like, I was, I still think I'm ignorant, right? Like, I don't know shit. But like at 23, I was like, I'm cut out for this. If it was anyone, I'd want it to happen to me, because like, I don't think anyone else could handle this as well as I'm handling it. And so, yeah, it's an interesting point, whether there's a higher power or energy or what may have you at play, who knows? But I can point, my success story is a result of 100 other people's like efforts. So
Yeah, you're still here for a reason. You got something to do. You got something to accomplish. You got something to share with folks.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's just, we'll cover the ICU stay in like the next 5 minutes. Anyway, was completely intubated, was on a ventilator, couldn't breathe on my own, couldn't swallow on my own. I could barely chew. Your body atrophies so quickly in a traumatic situation. And spinal cord injury essentially wrecks everything. So you lose your ability to pee, shit, move. I couldn't breathe on my own. I was on a ventilator for almost a month and a half. I subsequently got ICU pneumonia. So when COVID occurred, I really had some interesting thoughts and flashbacks, so to speak, because ICU pneumonia is brutal. And they have to go down into your lungs with tubes and suction liquid out, and you can't breathe. And I know what drowning is like now. So, yeah, so I basically, at 23, had to relearn how to breathe, chew, swallow, eventually move my arms, my hands, I had to learn. I was basically a baby at 23 again. So, yeah.
Yeah, you have come a long way, because as we're talking, I mean, you have gotten up, you've moved around, your hand motions, everything else. I mean, if I didn't know better, I'd think you were completely normal.
Yeah, you'd have no idea.
Mm-mm.
And that was one of my therapy goals. One of my big therapy goals before getting out of the hospital was like, in 6 months, I want to go sit at my favorite brewery in San Diego and have nobody know what I went through. And that was one of the goals I did accomplish. And nobody, I can get it. If I'm not actively walking down the street, nobody would ever know. If they don't see my cane, nobody would ever know. So.
All right. Important question. Beer of choice.
Oh, beer of choice. Actually, so I'm a big hard kombucha guy.
Oh.
I love, don't get me wrong, I love a good IPA. I love a good West Coast IPA. If we were talking IPAs, I would probably say Culture's IPA in Solana Beach. But June Shine Hard Kombucha, I'm a die-hard fan. I am actively lobbying to get an ambassadorship with them. I've tried to even apply for multiple jobs there. So, hard kombucha guy through and through. It feels better. There's no hangover. I'm a big fan of them.
Okay. Hey, that's good to know. I'm an IPA guy. I've been petitioning Elysian to, Space Dust IPA is my IPA of choice. I've been petitioning them to be an official sponsor of the John freaking Muir Pod, all to no avail at this point. But if you become an ambassador, we might have to talk.
Yeah, dude. You know what? It's funny when you bring up Space Dust. I remember when Space Dust first came out to the West Coast in college, and we were going down to Pacific Beach in San Diego, and we're like, what's this 8% IPA, like, Space Dust beer? And there was like a special every Tuesday at our favorite bar, and we'd get a Space Dust, and you're like, I only need one beer to get drunk on a budget? This is great.
Oh, perfect. So you say now you walk with a cane?
Yeah, so initially,
because I still have not seen you in person. I mean, when you marched by the campsite, I was still asleep. So
yeah. So I hike with hiking poles. Like, I can't not hike with hiking poles. I have to. Mm-hmm. My hiking poles when I'm out and about on trails are essentially my like third and fourth legs, right? I made the decision initially in 2019 when I got back to San Diego after my rehab stint. I refused to use a cane or any sort of assistive device because I didn't want to I didn't want to be seen as disabled. And it's a battle all individuals with spinal cord injuries go through, whether they're in a chair or they're walking in some form. And so probably for the first year post-injury, I didn't really use a cane. And then I kind of made the transition in spring of 2020 where I started walking around with a hiking stick or a forearm crutch of some sort. One, because it makes my life 1,000 times easier, because going up and down stairs is really hard for me. Curbs are really hard. I joke when I go on dates with girls, I'm like, if this date is going horribly, just push me off a curb. I can't run. I can't do anything. Like, you can get rid of me pretty quickly. But I also use the cane or the stick or the forearm crutch as a signal to other people to get the fuck out of my way. Because if I get bumped into, I will fall. It's a fact. My balance is decent, and it's gotten better over the past 2.5 years, but it's never going to be normal. And so I use that as a signal, like, people get out of my way. I don't want any trouble. I don't want to start fights at bars. Especially like down here in Costa Rica, there's a big machismo culture. So I'm like, I don't want any problems. This is my cane. Stay out of my way. I do me, you do you. And it just makes my life easier. So that's why I use them.
Right. And so in terms of hiking, I know that, a decent rate of pace out there, rate of speed, maybe do 3 miles an hour. And then when you're going at altitude under pack, it goes to, 2 miles an hour, maybe 1 mile an hour on the steep ascents. I mean, how does that shape up for you?
So so the faster I go, the more my body stiffens up. So I have what's called tone and spasticity. And so quadriplegia, incomplete quadriplegia, basically translates to all 4 limbs and the rest of my body are affected below the level of my injury. So essentially what this means is my left hand is normal, relatively normal. It's a little stiff, versus my right hand, as a visual reference, is like having glue and quick, like sand in it. And then like my index finger is like pretty paralyzed and doesn't have any strength. It's what we call quad pause. So like the way my hand curls is when you're fully paralyzed, you have a complete injury, right? Your hands curl like this when you have complete quadriplegia. Now, the way this translates to the rest of my body is I have atrophy across various parts of like my arms and my legs, and essentially like various parts of my body are paralyzed to different percentages, right?
Okay.
So like if we look at my left leg, it's the more functional leg, but it's a bit weaker. So I have more collective function in my left leg and my left hip flexor, so I can lift it higher. So like when I'm going rock climbing, but I actually have more strength in my quad and my right leg, but I have only 40 to 50% of my hamstring in my right leg. And then I also have what's called drop foot. So my foot, I don't have dorsiflexion in my right foot necessarily. It basically lands on the ball of the foot or completely flat, depending on what shoes I'm wearing. And so I trip a lot too. I trip on rocks. I have a saying when I'm hiking or when I'm rock climbing, I'm like, if you're not bleeding, you're not trying, right? And so I always end up spraying blood everywhere, in some capacity, as horrible as it is. But yeah, basically parts of my body are paralyzed to some degree in different forms.
Got it. And when did you come up with the idea to, that experience that I had on Gorgonio and that thought that I had about the next logical step being Whitney, let's do that. I'm going to be standing on top of Whitney under my own power.
Yeah. So that kind of became a pipe dream November 29th, 2018, right? Spinal cord injury is totally unpredictable, and we're going to gloss over quite a bit of therapy and everything. But long story short, the Whitney project came back into my head around February of 2019, right when I was just starting to take more than 5 steps in the therapy room. I remember turning to my therapist and I was like, what if we did Mount Whitney? She's like, you have to walk out of this therapy room and around the floor first before we even start talking about hiking. And I was like, yeah, but I'm doing this pretty quickly. She's like, just focus on just standing, focus on moving 1 foot at a time. I was like, okay, fine. I was like, love you, Barb, but like, whatever. So that came to me February 2019. I put a post up on my story of just Mount Whitney in all its glory with snow on it. I'm like, I'm going to make this happen at some point. No one really paid me any attention, right? Subsequently, like later that year in 2019, when I'm walking around on my own 2 feet, not fast by any means. I'd really only gone on one, not even a hike. I'd say it was like a mile before I went on a 1 mile hike up a really rocky trail with my nurse, Justin, just to test the waters. And I only had one hiking stick at the time. And it was the worst experience ever. But when we went to get beers with my nurses, I had that idea. I was telling them, I walked in, they're like, oh my God, you look great, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, like, thanks for saving my life. Thanks for doing what you guys do. And then I was like talking about goals and stuff. And I was like, I brought up Whitney again, because it stuck out in my mind. I was like, I'm walking in. I think this might be possible. And Justin immediately connected with it. And I was like, dude, I've been wanting to do that for years. Like, I would love to do that with you. And so began that friendship, essentially. And we ended up texting every day and talking and getting really vulnerable and close with each other. And now I can say he's bar none one of my best friends. We chat like almost daily, right? But yeah, he was like, oh, I'd love to do that with you. And so fast forward again to end 2019, I had to move out. I had to go create a life for myself. So I didn't want to stay in San Diego because it made me incredibly sad that I couldn't go out in the water and surf. And so I was looking at other states to move to, and I was running out of money. My parents were like, you're on your own. Like, you gotta make something of your life now that you're kind of out of this initial stage, which is not easy for my parents to do, let alone for me to do, right? So I eventually found a job in Denver, and I moved out to Denver in right in the beginning of January 2020. I moved out with $900 in my pocket and a Toyota 4Runner to a house I found on Craigslist, in a room that I found on Craigslist. I had literally pretty much nothing to my name. And I was working on setting up my life, and then it kind of dawned on me as I got settled in around February 2020, March 2020. I was like, I think this is the year to go do it. Like, I really want to really start hiking again. I really want to get out and see all that Colorado has to offer. And I can't do that like being at a gym. I can't do that just looking up at the mountains. Like, I actually want to get out there. And so this was pre-sponsorship, pre-media, pre-everything. I was just like, I'm just going to go get the fucking permits. And so I applied for the lottery permits when they came out, and I actually managed to get an overnight pass. I was like, holy shit, like, this is for real. Like, I got the exact dates I wanted, which, as you know, getting those for Whitney are pretty people try for years. I got it on my first try. And then this is a crazy series of events. One thing led to another. I was kind of posting about it on social media, and then a friend of mine from college reached out to me. He was a photographer in college, and he'd been starting to do some commercial work and stuff. And he's like, dude, like, I think you should apply to this company that I work at. They're doing this challenge called Chase Your Legacy. It's a $5,000 challenge, and we make a film out of what your challenge is. And he's like, that Mount Whitney project would be the most insane film we could ever do. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, I'll apply for it. And so I started campaigning on social media. And long story short, I basically blew 15, 20 other entries out of the water with voting across my profiles and family, friends, and everyone. And I won $5,000, and essentially that basically made it a reality. They're like, all right, well, now I have to go do this hike. And so that's when I started. What's crazy is I wasn't walking or hiking at the time in the beginning of 2020. I started with 1/4 mile walks down my block in Denver. 1/4 mile walks. And then that led to, 1/2 mile. And then that led to, and this is in the height of, like the pandemic, like lockdown.
Right.
So thankfully Denver is a very outdoorsy city, so they blocked off streets to walk on. But yeah, it started with literally 1/4 mile walks down the street. And then eventually it led to just like 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, 4 miles, 5 miles, 6 miles up in the front range of Golden and Boulder. And eventually I found, bar none, this is my favorite hike in the world, the Flatirons in Boulder, Colorado. I would lap that hill for hours on end, up and down, up and down, up and down, just to get vert in. And because it's such a steep hill, that trail is verbatim, verbatim is not the right word, but it's every section of the upper portion of Whitney, like in terms of steepness and like of rockiness. And so all 2020, I basically spent the majority of my unemployment training full time for this hike. And it's all started from 1/4 mile walks down the block.
Okay.
And yeah.
And we're going to leave it right there. We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to get down to the details of the trip from Horseshoe Meadows to Whitney. And I've got 7 or 8 possible trail names that I've jotted down that we're going to try on for size. And you have the right to refuse all of them or any of them. So
Sure.
just some ideas. So stay tuned for that. We'll be right back. And welcome back. All right, Jack, let's get down to it here. So what was the start date of your Whitney project?
So the start date in 2020 was supposed to be, I believe, sometime around September 7th, right? What ended up happening was California decided to become a tinderbox and light on fire. Unfortunately, now that, climate change is real. So that led me to essentially burning 6 months of training off in 2 weeks by going on a massive bender, because I was like, I don't know what to do with my life. Like, I just dedicated my entire year to training for this thing, and I was going to go do the impossible. That was a blessing in disguise. So I spent 2 weeks in San Diego just being a total degenerate, for lack of a better word. I won't go into detail. And then I spent the back half of 2020 kind of just rock climbing a bunch and kind of just living life. And I was like, I gave my word to this project. I have people invested in this project. I have to see this project through, right? I'm not giving up on this. So 2021 rolls around, and I once again applied for the lottery permits. We had 10 people apply across my sponsors, my friends, everything. Not a single one of us got our permit dates.
Didn't get it on the first time this go around, huh?
No, didn't get it. And so I was like, I don't know what the fuck to do, right? Like, I didn't necessarily know about the PCT JMT routes, right? And so I was in Tahoe in April. I was on a month-long break in between jobs, between my current job and my previous job. I was living in my van, and I was meeting up with a friend in Tahoe, and she was like, oh, you can do Cottonwood Pass to Whitney Summit and then down out of Whitney Portal. I was like, how do you do that? Like, I've never done a trip that long. And she's like, oh, I'll show you. And so she gave me the beta on the route, and I was like, oh my God, like, this makes so much sense. It's just a longer trip. Like, we were still going to do the overnight trip in 3 nights, right? But I was like, all right, well, how long is it? And she's like, it's 40 miles, plus or minus. And I was like, okay, I've never done a 40-mile backpacking trip, able-bodied or disabled. And she's like, you can make it happen. I was like, rad. And I had a rule of thumb in therapy during my recovery and my ongoing recovery. I always said to my therapist, I was like, I want to make this as hellacious and as shitty as you possibly can for me, because it's going to pay dividends later down the line when I'm living on my own and I'm doing life. And that motto stuck with me. And so when I found out, oh, this isn't going to be a 22-mile hike, this is going to be a 40-mile hike, I remember texting Justin, and I was like, well, we love a good Sufferfest, don't we? He's like, fuck yeah, we do. And I was like, all right, we're doing 40 miles now. We're not doing 22 anymore. And he's like, fuck yeah.
Jack, when my kids were in high school, we would talk about this concept of easy hard or hard easy. And it went like this, if you take the easy classes and take the easy way in high school, then the rest of your life's going to be hard.
Right.
But if you take the hard stuff up front, it makes the rest easy. And so it sounds like you had the same approach.
It's had the same. I've always had that approach, but it really stuck, especially with therapy and stuff. So, I stoked Justin out. I was like, dude, like, we're going to do this thing. Like, it's going to be fucking miserable. Like, it's not going to be easy. And he's like, that's what we live for, dude. Like, he's a semi-professional triathlete. He's done a couple Ironmans, so he knows that all too well. And so, from about April till about basically end of July, I trained every day, most days, 4 a.m. to hike or 6 a.m. to do the stair stepper with weighted bags. And there's so many times during that training prep where I just like would literally bang my head against the cabinet. I'm like, I am so fucking tired. I am in so much pain. Like, my disability, I live with pain, right? I just live with pain. And so I'd wake up stiff and in pain and just like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Anyway, we found out the Cottonwood Pass, route. We figured out the permits. We figured out, obviously, it's much easier to get in terms of permits. And we started the hike. I want to say, I believe it was, let me look, I think it was August 7th. Let's go back. No, it was August 4th. So we departed to Ridgecrest August 3rd. We stayed at an Airbnb. And then we went up to Cottonwood Pass, Cottonwood Lakes area, Horseshoe Meadows area, August 4th. We got a very, very late start because nobody got any sleep the night before because we were doing a ton of filming and a bunch of audio and stuff under the stars, which for me, the moment my sleep is thrown off, my body does not function. So that first day, we're loaded up on supplies, we're loaded up on packs, like full gear packs. Everyone's carrying probably minimum 30. My bag's probably around 23, 24. And, that first section from Horseshoe is like, it's pretty tame, but it's sandy. And so somebody like you doesn't think about that. But for somebody like me who can't create momentum from their legs, and I rely on my hiking poles to create momentum, that sand is a bloody nightmare for me. And then you got to go over, Cottonwood Pass, right? It's Chicken Spring. And so that first pass for me was, elevation wise, wasn't a big deal, but it's so rocky and so sandy that my speed, which is I average a 1.92 mile an hour pace, drops down to, a mile and a half an hour, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get over to the pass and you're like, oh, wow, this is great. But it's still sandy. And so we get to Chicken Spring. We started at like 10:45. We get to Chicken Spring around it had to be like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, something like that. We reload on water. And then you go over, it's not even a pass, but you go over that like mountain essentially from Chicken Spring, and it's all loose sand. And so that 4 miles from like that upper portion of Chicken Spring to essentially Lower Soldier Lake, whatever, that distance, it was all incredibly deep sand. And so for that first day was essentially 10, 11 hours of slogging and dragging my right foot because I didn't have sleep, so my right leg doesn't work, dragging my feet all the way to Lower Soldier. And then what ended up happening was we were completely out of water by the time we got there, right? Because we were out there for so long and there's no water sources. And we get to the stream at like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. And we're like, well, this isn't Lower Soldier Lake. Like, we got to keep going, right? And like, I'm like, first day of the trip, I'm like, all right, I'm going to keep it positive. Like, we're going to find this lake, right? But it's pitch black. We come to the trail junction, right? And kind of, it goes left or goes towards New Army Pass. And I was like, we're looking at the map in the dark. We're like, well, it's got to be that way. It's got to be right. Right. And so we start hiking up the trail. Basically, half my team, we're a team of 6, half of them almost went all the way over New Army Pass looking for Lower Soldier Lake, when in reality, what we found out the next fucking morning after setting camp in the meadow at like some ungodly, it's like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, we didn't sleep. I think we're pretty sure we had a bear come through because it kept one of our tents up, like circled our tent, right? And circled, like scared the shit out of our guys. I was out. I went out. I had no idea. There's like, we had some bear. We think we had a bear. We think we may have had a mountain lion or some raccoons too pass through because they got woken up 3 times throughout the night. Anyway,
ignorance is bliss, right?
Yeah. Woke up absolutely miserable the next morning. Once again, started at like 10 a.m.
Are you thinking to yourself at this point, what the heck have I gotten myself into?
Reality hadn't set in. We'll get there.
Okay. All right.
So like, we start the next morning, we refill, whatever. We start hiking down and we're like, oh my God, like it's downhill from here, right? We go half a mile. Literally the Lower Soldier Lake sign is right there. Like, we literally added 2 miles onto our day to make it like a 10-mile day, 10, 11 mile day that first day for no reason. And so like, we're just sitting there like kicking ourselves. I was like, all right, well, you want to be in the backcountry for 5 days. Like, this is what it is. This is what happens. You get lost occasionally.
That's right.
Or you go off trail. So basically that 5 miles, once again, from prior to Lower Soldier, essentially, down to Rock Creek, we were supposed to go from Lower Soldier all the way to Lower Horseshoe or Lower Crabtree Meadows. Having no idea how really like long and gnarly that hike is. And so we get down to Rock Creek. Once again, my sleep's fucked up. My nutrition, I still hadn't had really a full meal yet, right? I was pretty low on calories by that time. Everyone's low on sleep. Everyone's low on calories because we got in so late and we started so late. We get down to Rock Creek around 2 o'clock on the second day. And we're refueling, like eating as much as we can. And after like an hour and a half break, it's like 3 o'clock, right? 3:30. We start up, we were like, okay, well, we got to go to Guyot Pass and go to Lower Crabtree. And so at this point, other people from Lower Crabtree and, Guitar Lake are coming down to Rock Creek. And we stopped them, like not even half a mile up the trail. We're like, hey, how much water is in the next 10 miles, essentially, 8 miles, whatever it is? How much water is there? And like, how gnarly is Guyot Pass? And they're like, oh, there's no water. And we're like, oh no, like we don't want a repeat of day one. Like we won't get in till 12 a.m., 1 a.m. And so we kept asking people coming by and they're like, yeah, there's no water. And then one group came by like, oh, well, there's actually a stream right before Guyot. And we're like, okay, noted. So we as a collective team decided the smart thing to do would be to stay at Rock Creek and sleep for as much as possible and eat as much as possible. And that was actually our savior day. So that wasn't supposed to be our buffer day. The third day was supposed to be our buffer day. But that essentially allowed me to recharge completely. I went to bed at 6 p.m. that night. I refueled. And that's when it really set into me, when I was like, wow, like there's no turning back now. Like we're really in it. And I think every hiker has that feeling at some point when they're probably, at least in able-bodied case, 15, 20 miles in, we're like, all right, like if I get hurt, if something bad happens, like I'm 8 hours away from any sort of rescue.
That's right. Yep.
And so that's when it kind of really started to dawn on me. And I would ask the guys, even when we started, I'd turn to them. I was like, hey, do you guys believe? And they're like, fuck yeah, we believe. And it's like that day too, I had like a bit of a breakdown. I was like, I know we can do this, but like, you guys believe in me, right? They're like, we 100% believe in you. Like you can do this. Like, we know you can do this. you've done the training. You're literally the toughest person I know. And like my buddy Cole, who was on the trip with us, he had to sit me down for an hour, and I just had to explain to them. He's like, dude, like, I'm so scared right now. Like, I know we can do this, but like, this is no joke. He's like, yeah, we're for reals now. Like, we're actually in it. And at this point, we're only 14 miles in, right? And we still have another 10 to go to Guitar, and then another 4 to the summit, right?
Right.
So that Rock Creek day 2 was just, thank God. We dipped our heads in the water. We reset. Day 3, we started about, I was so focused for 5 days straight. I was the general leading my soldiers into battle every single day, right? And I made it clear. I was like, guys, we're waking up at 2 a.m. We're out of camp by 3:30 a.m. I need to hike in the dark. I prefer actually hiking in the dark because I don't have to think about how much is in front of me. I just have to focus on my light and move one foot in front of the other.
That's right. You're in a little light bubble.
You're in a light bubble, and I don't have to think about anything except the rock in front of me or the trail in front of me. And that's why I did all my training hikes at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Throughout, this past summer. And so we were on the trail by 3:15, 3:30 up to Blackout, and that was probably my best hiking day. I went into such a deep flow state up that pass that like we got to the top of Blackout Pass and like able-bodied time, probably a little bit faster. Like I was cooking probably like 2.5 miles an hour, not even thinking. I was just like so deep in a flow state, and we hit the top of the pass and just were like dying of laughter. I'm like, I can't believe we just fucking did that. Like, that's not an easy pass. Like it's pretty vertical. And then we like, for the next, it had to be 3 hours. I handed my pack off to the team, and I was like, we're fucking going. I barely said a word. I was probably averaging like a 2.5 mile an hour pace because the trail is really good in that section and it's relatively flat. And I just did not stop. Like I did not stop all the way until that basically section coming down into Lower Crabtree where it gets a bit rocky. And then that's when we got our first view of like Whitney, of the Guitar Lake area and everything. And I was just like, wow, like, okay, we're gonna make it, right? Like we're at least gonna make it to Guitar Lake. And so we got to that trail junction around Guitar Lake area, or prior to Guitar Lake area, and we re-upped on water. We redid food, and we're like, wow, we're way ahead of schedule. Like it's gonna be a beautiful day. Like we actually get to watch the sunset today.
Nice.
But that section going up to Guitar Lake in the middle of the heat of the day,
it's tough.
It's tough.
Yeah.
And you're going up to what, 11.5, 12K, something like that. And that was a longer section, but sum total that day was only 6 hours. And that was like my best day. That was my best day of hiking, bar none. I was like, wow, I hope I didn't peak physically on day 3 when we still have a summit in front of us, right? And so we stopped actually at Guitar Lake to go like just dip in the lake and get water and everything for an hour and make some food. And then we actually went up to the upper lake because it shaves some distance off your summit day.
Yeah, you went to that little tarn up there, or did you go to Hitchcock Lakes?
It's the one right after Guitar Lake.
Yeah, it's a tarn up there. Yeah.
Yeah, so we went to Tarn, we camped up there. That's actually when I met Superhero.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, tell us about Superhero, because I'm going to talk to her. I'm talking to her and her family a little bit later this week for a future episode.
Yeah, so Superhero, Maggie, most adorable little girl. Like the fact that we introduced ourselves like, hey, I'm so and so, like we're doing this like film, this inspirational film, yada yada. And so we got to talking, and they're like, oh, well, we're leaving at 4 a.m. to summit. We're like, cool, we're starting at 2 a.m. They're like, all right, cool, like we'll see you at the summit. But it was just really cool to see. I think she's what, 6?
I think so.
Right?
Yeah.
And they're doing a 72-mile hike, right? Just absolutely. I remember I messaged Jen, her mom, like after the hike, and I was like, you guys are raising her right. Like that is the way to raise a kid, like out in the backcountry. Like, you know, I couldn't have done that as a 6-year-old, let me tell you.
Yeah. I mean, doing long hikes, I mean, it is really powerful because you look back and you think, you know, if I can do that, I mean, I can do just about anything. You know, it's all incremental. If I incrementally approach something and do the steps I need to do, I can do just about anything. And to learn that lesson at such a young age, I mean,
it's pretty valuable.
That's powerful. Yes.
Yeah. A lot of respect for her parents and a lot of admiration for her. So,
yeah.
Well,
take us through that last day, the final ascent up to Whitney. How did the 2 a.m. wake up call and hiking up to Whitney go?
So we woke up at 1 a.m., right? I was dead silent. I didn't sleep that night. I was like, this 3-year-long project, essentially, this 3-year-long goal, like I'm finally, if all is in sync, everything goes well, like we're gonna make it to the summit, come hell or high water. And if I die, I die, right? I have a tattoo on me that says si me muero, me muero in Spanish, which just translates to if I die, I die. It was a saying I had in therapy, because my blood pressure would drop and I'd slowly pass out, and I'd turn to my therapist and be like, if I die, I die, Barb. She's like, I don't want to do the paperwork. And I was like, too bad. And then like I'd slowly pass out. And so, yeah, I woke up at 1 a.m. and I was just once again played general. I was like, let's go. We're on a schedule. There's no fucking around. You guys have your cameras ready, have your food ready. I have nothing to say. Like, I was just constantly like affirmations. I was like, believe. I turned to the guys like, you guys believe? Like, we fucking believe. And I'm like, all right, it's time to stay focused. And so there's a video I watched throughout my training sessions for the past 2 years called It's Time to Stay Focused. And I would just repeat that over and over and over again. And so, you know, you're in the dark heading up to Trail Junction. And that trail is steep. That trail is very, very gnarly.
Yeah, it is.
And it's, you know, there's some pretty exposed sections at points. And at one point, you know, I think we were probably an hour and a half in. I was like, it's 2 miles. We got to be fucking there by now. And then you look up and you see like lights like another 1,000 feet above you. And you're like, and I was just like, don't even think about it. Just keep moving. Don't think about it. Don't say anything. Don't acknowledge that there's people ahead of you, right? And at one point, you know, David Goggins' famous saying, I'm here to take souls, right? I've had a version of my own of that before I even knew who Goggins was, and then I listened to his audiobook. But at one point, we passed one person, and I turned to Justin, and I was like, I just took their fucking soul. And then we passed another couple, right, who started before us. And they were like somewhere probably around, they had to be at like 11,000 feet, something like, or 12,000 feet. And I turned to Justin again. I was like, they may pass us again, but they just let a fucking cripple pass them. I just took their fucking souls. And he's like, fuck yeah, you did. And we would just keep chugging along up and up and up and up. And we hit Trail Junction probably around 6:30, you know, right prime time. And that's actually when I remember looking down, seeing your tents and being like, who are the motherfuckers who have the fucking audacity to camp at 13,000 feet with no water? I was like, I don't know who those guys are, but fuck them. Cause like we have all of our gear on us and all this extra water, and they're just at 13,000 just camping.
Yeah, that would be us. That was us.
Yeah. I was like the fucking audacity. And I said that verbatim to Justin. He's like, yeah, I don't know who they are, but they're wild. Yeah, we hit Trail Junction, and for months on end, I had visualized turning to my buddies, my team, and being like, hey, we're at Trail Junction. Like, you guys can lighten your packs finally. You guys, you know, it's time. Like, we're going to the summit. right? And we had perfect weather, no wind, nothing.
Yeah,
And
it was
I
gorgeous.
got to say those words out loud to them, and I was like, wow, my visualization, my affirmations, my visualizations that I had been doing for months, for 2 years at this point, like they're a reality now. And I was like, Justin, like, you can take your pack off, you can lighten it. And he's like, dude, we're here. Like, we're fucking here. And it's, it's another 1.92 miles to the summit.
Mhm.
And I was like, all right, like, we're going to the summit. Like, we're going to go make it. And that first mile of the upper portion of the trail. Now I'm a rock climber, right? I didn't start rock climbing until actually after my injury. So I'm on the US national like adaptive climbing team. I did my first competition in June. I regularly climb on the front range and in gyms. So like taking falls and like being exposed on rock faces does not really bother me. But the gravity of the situation, the fact that I was so close to my goal, I remember turning at certain points because like I had to like scramble over boulders, which means basically inchworming over. I don't like throw my legs over. I literally just like roll over them, and like turning to Justin and like to Alex and Cole and be like, I'm so scared right now. Like I am so scared. And it wasn't necessary. It was the way my brain works is I have to say these negative things out loud because then they lose power. Was I as scared as I thought I was? No. But I had to say these things out loud. And then I'd also say to them, like in some of the, like the window section, then as you're kind of traversing over the windows and the needles and stuff, I was like, I turned to them like, I'm so scared. Like, I don't want to die today. Like, I don't want to die. Like you can't like, there's no getting me off of this if I hurt my ankle or like you have to literally would have to carry me out. And I turned to them on several occasions, like, I don't want to die today. I don't want to die. And they're like, you're not going to die. Like, keep moving. Just keep moving. And I was like, okay. And it was like taking that fear, right? And just taking it and just giving it a middle finger and like shoving it to the side and being like, I guess still got to go. I still got to go.
Yeah, I noticed on the video that your middle finger still works just fine.
Yeah. It doesn't work great, but it works good enough.
That's right.
It's my favorite finger. Yeah, I always like to say I like to give 2 middle fingers to fuck paralysis. Hashtag fuck paralysis. But yeah, I just multiple occasions I'm so scared I don't want to die. I'm so scared I don't want to die. And we basically hit that first section is pretty, exposed. It's gnarly. It throws everyone off. Like I've read trip reports from other people, and I remember this older man passed us, and he was talking to the guys. He's like, "Oh yeah, this is my 50th summit of Mount Whitney."
Yeah, that guy was camping. That guy was camping right next to us. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, good, dude. Like, I was like, holy shit. And he passed us, and I was like, hey man, like, does the trail get a little easier? He's like, oh yeah, it gets easier up like the next mile. The next mile, you think you're closer. You're not even anywhere near to being close, right?
And you're at 14,000 feet, so everything is slower.
Everything's slower.
Yeah.
And then my buddies told him like what we were doing and who I was, and he's like, oh, I can't wait to shake his hand at the summit, right? And that last mile, I was like, we got to be there. And then like with I've done a 14. I did Bros in Colorado exactly a year ago almost. And you think you hit a false summit and you're like, oh, it's still another 1,000 feet to the summit, right? So that was my makeup for not doing Whitney. I was like, I have to do a 14er. So anyway, that last section, I realized I was like, because you're going along and you look to your right and the hut is right there. But you're like, oh, why don't I just climb straight up to that? But then you realize you have to go all the way around and then all the way up the backside. As it dawned on me, I was like, we're still not close. it's time to stay focused. Just believe, stay focused. Believe, stay focused. And for the next basically hour and a half, we trudged our way up, all the way up that backside. And then like it really started to dawn on me when we were going up to the backside. I was like, I'm gonna reach my goal. Like this is really, really gonna happen. And I started to feel a little bit of emotion that I'd been keeping down to ensure that I had that emotional willpower should I need it to tap into. And it kept coming up, choking me up more and more as we got to the top. I acclimate very, very well. And granted, we were at 10K for 3-4 days prior, but I knew my body, I just know my body acclimates well. And so no issues with elevation, but as we got closer and closer to that hut, I was like, we're going to be rounding the corner, like rounding the hill essentially. And like the hut's got to be here any second. And then as we were coming up to the hut, part of my team ran forward to take photos and some video and stuff, but I was like starting to choke. I was like starting, like, oh my, like starting to cry. And I was like, just stay focused. You can let it out as soon as you hit that sign on the summit. Don't let it out now. And I was like, it was like animalistic crying, right? And whenever I went on hikes in Colorado, I always used my pole and I would tap my first waypoint and the end of whatever summit of like the mountain or top of the hill or whatever I was doing. And then I would end my hike again by tapping that waypoint. And so I'd been visualizing for 2 years, taking my pole and tapping that fucking hut with my pole to signify that I was at the summit and I just had another 100 feet to go. And so I was slowly starting to lose it more and more, and it was dawning on me. And then Justin goes, hey, you can tap the hut with your stick, right? And I tapped that front right corner of the hut with my stick, and I was like, I tapped the hut. And then I kept going, and then my crew was like, hey guys, like this is a really big moment. Like we're about to make history. Can you guys move out of the way? Like this is a really big deal. And I basically got to summit with a silent crowd and like everyone kind of on the periphery. And I got to touch that waypoint sign essentially. And then that's when everyone started applauding. I just bawled. I bawled for probably 10 minutes straight. I was like, I'm getting emotional about it right now. Like never, let alone the past basically almost 3 years, but let alone everything I'd been through to finally get to that summit, the highest mountain in the lower 48. It's never been done by somebody with a spinal cord injury, let alone quadriplegia. You can't write a better story, right? To say that you were going to do it prior and then have all these tragic events occur, all these curveballs, all these things occur, and then to stand up there almost 3 years later on top of that summit, it's like, it's insane. It's just fucking insane. And then to have your nurse who saved your life, who is now your best friend up there, and have your other best friend who's been a mentor in like business and life and stuff up there, and then to have one of your good college friends filming it, right? Like oh man, like just insane, just absolutely insane moment. And like me just screaming out like animalistic, like crying and like letting 3 years of emotion and everything, just letting it all go. And then realizing that's only finish line number 1, right? Like you still got to get down. And that's really when it really got real. Right.
The trail from base camp or the outpost down at the bottom of 99 switchbacks, the trail from that point on down to Mirror Lake is some of the worst trail I have ever hiked on. There's not a flat footfall in every 100 paces. It's just terrible.
And that's worst terrain for somebody like me.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It basically slows my pace down to 0.3 to 0.5 miles an hour.
Yeah. So we're not gonna dwell on that part. We're gonna end the story right there at the top of Mount Whitney. I want to say congratulations, Jack. You are an inspiration. I heard from Jen in our communication back and forth that there wasn't a dry eye on top of that mountain that morning. I had summited the previous night, did a sunset summit, and so I missed out on all the fun and the emotions up there. But I heard it was really awe-inspiring. So what an accomplishment! When does the movie get made? I can't wait to pay for a ticket into a theater and see this on the big screen.
So I have to preface this with it's not a commercial film.
But it should be. That's what I'm saying though. It should be a commercial film. There should be a movie and you could play yourself.
Yeah, so it's just the permitting thing. So it's not a commercial film, and our team was small. It was 6, so it doesn't fall into that issue. But the film should be out sometime between mid to late October. I believe we'll be doing a film premiere in San Diego, and then hopefully we'll be submitting it to some film festivals as well. It'll be called Paralyzed Peaks. Paralyzed Peaks is also my Instagram handle, Paralyzed TOPEAKS, on Instagram. And I am not currently allowed, or I'm not posting video clips simply for the film's sake. But I will be sharing photos and notes intermittently throughout the next few months to promote it. We'll also be LA Times front page, digital and print. We met, like I said, the editor on the mountain. So that will be coming out in the next 2 to 3 weeks, hopefully. Currently, the journalist is going through all the stories with my doctors, me, my parents, everyone. So looking forward to that. So
fantastic. If you remember, I would love to get information or an invitation to the premiere. I'd love to go down there and see it. Yes,
of course. If as soon as I post like updated stuff, please literally DM me, comment on the post. We can make it happen. It's gonna be a party. It's gonna be a really big party.
Fantastic. So, I'd like to buy you a kombucha.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
For sure.
Hey, I've got some trail names to try on. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay,
I'm excited.
Okay, so just some of the ones that came up in my mind as we were talking about various things in your story here. You take souls out there, so maybe Reaper.
Okay,
Reaper.
I want to hear all of them.
All right, you're a general out there commanding the troops, so maybe Patton.
Okay.
Okay. Out in the real world, you're using a cane, so maybe tripod.
That one doesn't fit.
Okay.
Right up. Keep going. I think I had it in my head, but I'll.
Okay.
I want to hear all of them.
All right. I just wrote down kombucha. That could be entertaining there. Deep, because of your free diving and the depth of your story.
Yeah, do you have any more?
Oh, I've got more. I've got more.
Yeah. Let's hear them all.
Okay.
Let's hear them all.
Swagger, because you walk a little differently, but you've got this swagger to you. I like that one. Swagger.
I like that one. That's number 2.
Okay.
That's number 2.
All right. Phoenix.
No.
Back from the ashes.
No.
Okay. We've talked a couple times about ignorance being bliss, so maybe it's just bliss.
No, finish them off, and then I'll give you what I was thinking.
2 more. You mentioned a couple times born with a silver spoon, and then my favorite is nails, because you are as tough as nails.
All right, so let's top 3 this. So
okay.
You said Patton, but then you said general, and I like just general.
Okay.
Like the general.
The general.
I liked nails is good, and then I like swagger. So out of those 3, I'm torn between swagger and general, because I definitely have a bit of a charm to me. My mom's always said that. I think swagger is a good one. I think swagger. So I just walk with a bit of swagger, both
That's
a
right.
limp and confidence. So I think swagger is a great trail name, and that's a good one. I'm stoked on that.
All
I've
right.
been waiting. I was hoping I would get it bestowed on the trail, but now that we've had the podcast, I think that's the one.
Try it on. See how it feels. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Swagger, you know where we are?
We are on the John Frickin' Muir podcast.
That's correct. And we're at that time of the episode where I turn to you and ask you for your pro tip insight of the week. What little secret can you share with our listeners to make their next outdoor experience even better?
Right off the top of my head, salt tabs. Salt tabs. Salt tabs are what saved my ass on the summit and on the 99 switchbacks down. Our summit day was 17 hours total. And because I had salt tabs on those 99 switchbacks, which took me essentially almost 8 hours to get down, salt tabs literally saved my life. So if you are low on water, but you have a dozen salt tabs, you can still keep going. And that's what literally kept me from being incapacitated on that descent. So salt tabs or die, literally.
Okay, fantastic. So there you have it. That's it. This episode is just about in the books. I hope our listeners enjoyed our time with Swagger. I want to thank him for joining us this week. Jack, how can our listeners keep up with you on social media, and where can they find updates on your latest adventures?
You can find me on Instagram at paralyzed, TOPeaks, PEAKS. I am fairly active on Instagram. I am happy to answer any and all questions regarding spinal cord injury, hiking with disability, rock climbing, you name it. I love chatting with people. I'm an extrovert. So that's where you can find me. You can find the film info on there as well. And then you can find me on my website at paralyzed2peaks.com.
Fantastic. Remember to check the pod out on social media as well. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And if you have comments or clips you want to share, you can send it to me at johnfreakinmuir@gmail.com. Swagger, I'm also looking to you to share your recommendation for a book, a movie, documentary, YouTube channel, something that's going to keep our listeners connected to the outdoor experience. We're calling this our adventure media recommendation. What do you have for us?
In terms of YouTube videos for like outdoor stuff specifically?
Yes.
Okay. I really love Cody and Victoria Blue on YouTube. They're YouTubers out of Tahoe and Reno, and they're a couple that just do backcountry adventures and show you essentially how to do it. I actually have chatted with them. I look forward to meeting them probably this fall and hanging out with them, shooting some stuff. So I think their YouTube channel is great. And I think the other profile is Chrissy May Cagney, bodybuilder turned alpinist. She's a previous alcoholic turned sober as well. I followed her journey for probably 5 or 6 years, and she's getting into alpine climbing and stuff. And we just recently had a brief interaction on social that made my day, and I think what she's doing is phenomenal. So those are the two, the YouTuber, Cody and Victoria Blue, and then Chrissy May Cagney on Instagram are my two favorite follows currently.
That's great. You know, we love talking about the stories on the trails, but it's so interesting to me that there are so many stories behind the people on the trails and their journeys, their metaphorical journeys. So that's always very engaging and interesting to me.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And hey, before we wrap things up, I've got one more segment for you called What Have I Not Asked You That You're Dying to Tell Me About? What did I miss? What did I miss in the interview here? What didn't I ask you about?
We didn't really talk about climbing, but I actually like rock climbing more than I like hiking. And I kind of addressed it in the first part that hiking is just an approach with no crag. But yeah, I'm a massive lover of rocks and all forms of climbing, and I look forward to spending my October working remotely and living out of my van in Yosemite. So, and shooting friends up on El Cap. That's kind of my goal. So nice. I'm going to be the first person with a spinal cord injury shooting I'm the crippled Jimmy Chin. Let's just put it that way. That's my goal.
Got it. Sounds very dirtbaggy.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. Hey, thank you for tuning in. Actually, Before I get to that last segment that's a wrap from the John Freaking Muir studio. Any shout outs to friends and family, Swagger?
Yeah, shout out to Justin Weiner, my nurse who saved my life. Shout out to Cole Mayer, my good buddy who's provided me so much life insight. Alex Romo on the camera, who tied my shoes the entirety of our 5-day trip when I couldn't tie them on my own, kept my feet secured and locked into those boots. Chase Viken for being the creative director on our project, and also just one completely stoked out dude who's just frothing all the time. And then Sam Newton, who was the creative force and creator of Paralyzed Peaks, the name, and gave it to me, and has subsequently helped me with a ton of branding and stuff, who also helped on the project as well. So shout out to my crew from the Whitney project, and we're looking forward to quite a few more projects in the works with them.
All right. And don't forget mom and dad and brother.
Mom and dad and brother too. And all the surgeons that fused my neck and kept me kicking.
Yeah. Very good. All right. Thank you for tuning in. Always remember, the trail is the trail. It doesn't care if you want to go downhill. It doesn't care if it's almost dark and you're looking for a campsite. It doesn't even care if your foot has no flexion and you spray blood every time you trip on a rock. The trail is the trail. Embrace the suck.